I was curious to ask when you first sort of locked in with your ambition with music. Like, what was the moment that made you go, that's what I want to do?
Right. Well, I think the decision to maybe seriously pursue it as a professional, as a career, probably happened a little bit later than most people. Oh. I was kind of already finishing up college when I realized that this was kind of what I wanted to do. The passion for music started very early, when I first started playing guitar as a 12-year-old. So that was always there, and it was a love of mine, and was always, I knew it was going to be a part of my life. But when you're 15, you don't really think, well, at least I didn't think about a career. Like, the idea of being a career musician was something I didn't know about. I only knew about rock and roll stars. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like I thought, or my friends and I thought, if we were going to be professional musicians, it meant we were in Metallica, And so there wasn't like, I didn't know that there were these other avenues for making a living, which was silly to think that, because, I had a guitar teacher that came to my house and gave me lessons. So obviously that's a very viable way of making a living in music. Sure. But, when you're a teenager, I don't know. You just don't. Your brain doesn't work that way. No, totally. You don't think about those things. I was about 8, I think, when I decided I wanted to make music my life, but I had no concept of what career meant. I just thought I want to be Michael Jackson, which is pretty much right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, was that the same as you? Like you sort of locked into the idea of doing it, but the professional aspect of it came later. Right. Well, I think the most important thing is that I had dreams and I had goals. Right. Yeah. Those were there. It was just the idea of how to make it happen was not obvious to me until I was a little bit older. Sure. And so as I was finishing school, I was playing, I was just playing in bands around the campus and around the area in the town, and was doing little recordings here and there for people, and at the same time just kind of reading more about the music business and about how there were avenues to make a living beyond being a superstar necessarily, or a guitar god, or whatever you want to call it. That's quite a realistic view to have at such a young age. Well, yeah. I mean, of course, I'd still love to be, to have the career of a Steve Vai or something. Who wouldn't? Yeah, that's and I don't plan on stopping until I get there. But I'll let you know how that goes in another 10 years. Right. You're not doing too badly. Yeah, but it was like all of a sudden it was like, okay, I can play in a couple bands, I can do recordings, I can do, these freelance work, I can play in weddings, I can teach, I can do all these things. Yeah. And I was making music, and that was kind of what was the most important thing. And that was also right around when I decided that I didn't want to follow what my college degree path was setting me up for, which was to work in journalism and public relations and advertising. Gotcha. I kind of decided, it was kind of funny, I took one summer internship at a public relations firm in San Francisco. Yeah. And I was a junior in college before my senior year. And that was right when that's what it took for me to be like, I ain't doing this. This is not for me. What was it about it though? Was it? Well, it wasn't that it was bad. It wasn't like it was bad. There was nothing wrong with it. It was a good company. Everyone was nice. It just wasn't for me. I was sitting in front of a computer thinking about playing guitar. Like, I mean, it was that simple. Everyone I worked with was great, and they were, fun and stuff. But I was sitting there. I'd be sitting there typing up a release or a fact page or whatever, and doing research on the new thing. And I think one of our clients was like a windows and doors company. Right. We were doing the public relations for Geldwin Windows and Doors, which is like this boutique. Door company that if you're buying a house or building a house, you buy these doors. Yeah. And I'm just like, this is cool. I'm getting paid, but this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like everyone else in this cubicle, this is what they're supposed to be doing, but not me. And so entering my senior year of school kind of put a different perspective on, I passed my classes and did all the work and, worked hard and got a degree and graduated. But as soon as I was done, it was like, all right, I think we need to kind of maybe refocus things. And the funny thing is, I didn't get I actually applied to some advertising agencies and some PR firms towards the end of school, but I didn't get hired anywhere.
Right.
I think I probably just was like, oh wait, I should probably apply for jobs. And then by the time I did, they had already hired all the graduating seniors that they were going to hire,
Yeah.
And so I called my parents and I was like, I think I'm going to stay in Texas. I grew up in California and they were still living there. And I said, I'm going to stay in Texas and try and do this music thing. And they went, okay. Like, okay. It's like, well, we can't stop him. We can't physically go remove him from Texas and bring him back to, and make him do this. So he's going to do what he's going to do.
Right. Yeah.
And so I got a part-time job working at this little marketing firm that I'm very grateful for because I got the job through a drummer that I was playing with. He had a friend that owned this company, and the guy was like, hey, I know you're playing in the band right now and you guys aren't making any money. So if you want to come work with me, you can make some money on the side, save up until you want to get out of here. So that was kind of a big help for a couple years getting off my feet, just having a little side income, as
Absolutely.
I just figured it out, joined bands. They didn't go anywhere. Went to another band. They didn't go anywhere.
Right.
Played at churches, played recording sessions, played weddings, taught, did literally anything with anybody for any amount of money, mostly not a lot of money,
So many people I went to school with played music and I was in lots of bands and things, but very few of them actually took it to a professional career. I think there's like maybe 2 of us or something, 3 of us maybe.
Sure, yeah.
And I've been thinking more and more recently about what's the thing that makes just the select few go the extra mile to actually go from talking about it to actually doing it. Because you're sort of just describing the process into a career in the business is not easy.
Right.
So you need to be pretty determined to want to do it,
Yeah, I mean that's step one, and I don't, my path to where I am today, wherever the heck that is probably no different than most people's. I think today might be different because of social media. I think that might actually have an impact on the way people's careers change. But for me, and we look maybe about the same age, I think.
I'm not sure.
No, okay. Well, I'm in my 30s. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm just about to finish my 30s.
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So we're the same. Exactly. So,
right.
so you know how it is, you had to physically go get a gig.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't get a bunch of Instagram hits and then somebody called you. Like you had to go physically be like, hi, I'm Danny. Yeah. This is what I sound like. Can I sit in? Oh no, I can't. Oh, okay. How about next week? Okay. I'll come back next week. Okay.
But was the thing that connect with the drive, like where'd the drive come from for you? Was it just pure love of music, or was it escapism, or?
It wasn't so much escapism. It was definitely a passion for it. Like I loved doing it. I loved the feeling I had playing guitar and playing music with people and having that sort of sonic experience, I guess. And just, the lifestyle is really cool. I know that sounds crazy, and I don't mean like the rock and roll lifestyle, but I mean just like, I've always wanted to travel and see things and tour and be in a recording studio. Like that was just the first time I was in a real recording studio. I was just like blown away. It was just like a regular studio. It wasn't like Ocean Way or something. But I recognized I had some modicum of ability to kind of like get the job done. I when people ask me to do something in a musical level, I was able to provide for them what they needed. And so that kind of validation was like, okay, maybe I'm quote unquote good enough to at least attempt this.
Right. Give it a shot.
But I knew I wasn't the best or anything like that, but I knew I could handle whatever I threw myself into.
Right. Yeah.
And even some cases I couldn't handle a lot of the things that I threw myself into, but that's how you find out that you can't do it, right?
Of course, yeah. But did you have supportive people around you? I mean, you were saying before your family they weren't against you pursuing the career, but
right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean they were encouraging. And my mom's real funny. She's actually an artist, a visual artist,
cool.
but she'll still sometimes be like, "Are you sure you don't want to like go back and get your MBA and maybe like start a record label or something?" I'm like, "No, Mom." So, God bless her.
I sort of get that because I don't have kids, but I hope to, and I think in the future, would I want my kids to live my life?
I don't know. Yeah, I have to think about that a lot. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and my wife and I are kind of like, well, I mean, we're hoping she'll be an astrophysicist or something, but
of course, yeah,
or a brain surgeon. But she's running right. Just a couple hours ago, she was running around with a harmonica. So
that's pretty cool.
I don't know. Yeah, playing some blues or whatever. So we'll see.
No, I get the lifestyle thing because I was like working like crappy jobs, 40 hours and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and I just felt locked into this thing that I didn't relate to, and I like the idea of sort of being a bit of a wanderer and being in control of my own schedule and
Yeah.
So it's very different to the pursuit of like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That certainly wasn't it for me.
Well, yeah, no. That was never part of my agenda. But the idea of having your own schedule and kind of making your own hours and that is appealing and still is. It's kind of a nightmare sometimes, though.
Absolutely.
Because the deeper into this you get, you find out that you are juggling so many things that occasionally you think, if I just had to go to one place from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 5 days, it would be so much easier. But I don't know. But would I be happy? Probably not. So it's the trade-off.
What we never get to do is just go into autopilot. We never get to phone it in.
Right.
We can't just be a bit tired that week and go, whatever, I'll just do the minimum.
Right. Exactly.
So you had a guitar tutor. Did you just have one guitar tutor, or did you go learn from a series of people?
I had a couple, growing up, when I was super young. Well, I don't know, super young, I wasn't like 4. But like when I was 11, I think I started guitar when I was 11. I took from a friend's mom.
Oh, yeah.
Who she played a little bit of kind of folk guitar. And it was kind of cool because my mom taught her son art lessons in exchange for his mom teaching me guitar lessons.
Cool.
So she was my first teacher, and we, I was like 3 months or something, and I learned a couple of chords, and it was great, And then I had another local teacher in town for a little while where we just kind of, worked on tablature and like Nirvana songs and things. It was very much, my guitar upbringing is very much like American suburban middle class kid learns guitar.
Right.
Like that's kind of like, and then jams in a garage with his friends on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. It's like in every movie, every TV show you've ever seen, that was me.
Right.
In high school, I found a teacher that was more advanced, who was a student actually of Joe Satriani's.
Oh, wow.
When Joe Satriani was a teacher in the 80s, in the Bay Area. And this teacher, Gordon Kahn is his name, was a big influence on just getting me serious about guitar. I was serious about it, but he was like, all right, look, you want to really play? Here's what we're going to do.
Right.
And so I learned theory and technique and we worked on everything from shred stuff to Steely Dan to, anything I was interested in. He would try to help me learn it.
Yeah. I was curious to know where the technique came from, because I mean, just seeing you play online, that your technique's fantastic.
Well, thanks. It was pretty bad before I met him, but he helped me learn what I was into at the time, which a lot of it was kind of the faster style of guitar playing, which I still never really figured out how to do properly. Right. But towards the end of our lessons, my taste had changed and I was getting into more funk and jazz and R&B and stuff. And so he kind of, he played a little bit of that, but he was like, well, if you like that, you'll love Steely Dan.
Right.
And so like, we worked on some of that stuff and everything. And then in college, I had like I said, I was an advertising student, but I had to take elective credit. What's this thing that they have in the States for? It's just basically like you have to fulfill a certain amount of hours every semester of just like whatever. And so like, people who are pre-med will take like cooking or like whatever.
So you get points for just showing up, basically.
Yeah, well, kind of, underwater basket weaving, is the one of those. This is the joke my dad always makes. We're gonna go major in underwater basket weaving, and so I took jazz guitar from a very, very accomplished jazz guitarist named Tom Burchill, who still teaches at my university. Awesome. And it was cool. I met with him like once a week. Yeah. For like 2 semesters, I think, and it was jazz.
Were you a good student?
I don't know. I think so. I think I may have slept through a few of them. I don't know. I have to ask him. But it was jazz as it applied to what I wanted to do with music.
Right.
So I never focused on really being a straight ahead player or even like digging into standards all that much. And sometimes I wish maybe I should have done that, but with the time I had with him, but we worked a lot on harmony and chords and some theory and voice leading and things like that. So it helped me a lot with my composition. Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha.
For sure. Probably more so than my ability to play over giant steps.
Right.
And then I haven't had a guitar teacher since then. So it's just been kind of self-taught and learning from playing with friends or transcribing my favorite records or something like that. So
right. Yeah. Well, one of the interesting challenges that I've started to notice more and more for younger players coming in today is that there's now this whole internet thing. So there's opinions galore, YouTube tutorials and
unfortunately
and all the stuff. And there's some good stuff out there, but there's also a lot of nonsense. And I see a lot of people who really get the wrong advice on technique and that sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, we both sort of came about before that really kicked in. Right. But I mean, how would, if you were talking to a young person now, what advice would you give about how to sort of sort through all of the contrary information that's out there?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I was learning guitar, in high school and stuff, that was when you could download tablature off the internet. I don't know if you remember doing that, but there was a website called harmonycentral.com. Maybe there still is. I don't know. I think they got shut down for copyright infringement or something. But
right. Okay. I don't think I
download. Yeah, you could download these tablature pages that anyone could make and anyone could upload. Yeah. And probably 50% of the time they were wrong. Right. But I would learn them, and then I would listen to the thing that I was trying to play, and then I'd be like, you know what? That's wrong. Yeah. Let me figure out how it's really supposed to go. So I could see how maybe watching YouTube for some people, if you are really intuitive about what you're learning, you can pick up on what's not right. Yeah. I don't really watch a lot of YouTube guitar lessons. No, the one that I do watch is a good friend of mine, and he's one of the most recorded guitarists in history. I don't know if you know Tim Pierce. Yeah. The session legend. And he's got these great guitar lessons on his website, and they're the real deal. Right. It's very much like this is how it's supposed to be done. Right. And then there's other guys that do really great lessons too, of course. But I think if you're young and you're really just trying to learn, I mean, if you're getting taught the quote unquote wrong way, at least you're still getting taught something. And then in your own journey, you can figure out if it's right or not.
Because it's a murky world, isn't it? Because I mean, I've noticed that there are similarities between the playing styles of, say, Hendrix and Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and some of the giants. Yeah. But then there are people who sort of confuse the whole thing in a good way, like Jeff Beck and Mark Knopfler and those sorts of players who kind of made their own way up of playing. Right. And they're amazing, fantastic players, but they're just not playing conventionally. So
yeah. Well, I think the one thing, YouTube is great for a number of reasons. You can find anything, you can see someone doing it, and it's demonstrated for you right in front of your very eyes. You can slow it down, you can watch it 10 trillion times till you get it, which can be amazing. And it can also be really detrimental. Yeah. Because at some point you're going to have to use your ear. If you want to learn music, really how to operate as a musician, you're going to have to train your ear. You're going to have to not have stuff just spoon-fed to you from a video. You can start with those and learn something cool, and then go off and do something with it and use the knowledge that you gain from those videos to then discover stuff on your own with your own ears, not with your eyes. And so, it can be really great, but it can also kind of not, you end up not sounding like yourself because it's right there, you know. I've been asked this question before, and I always kind of go back to the whole, like, if you look at Eddie Van Halen, like he ended up sounding like Eddie Van Halen because he failed at sounding like Alan Holdsworth. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a good way of looking at it.
He was obsessed with Alan Holdsworth, but he couldn't see Alan do it. I mean, outside of maybe catching a gig, but he didn't have an iPhone to record the thing and take it home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because he just used his ear and tried to figure all that stuff out, we ended up with Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking. So I guess I guess there's no such thing as right and wrong. It's not so black and white then.
Same way with Stevie and Jimmy. You know, Stevie was like really wanting to emulate Jimi Hendrix, but outside of like, I don't know, some old reel-to-reel thing that he probably, his video that he could have stumbled upon, like he had to just kind of use his ears. And then now we have Stevie Ray Vaughan. So, you know, I mean, I think there's definitely, when you have to put in that kind of work and that kind of elbow grease to develop a sound, it's just going to be better for you.
One of the things that I like to say to people is it's great to learn from the rock gods, from the famous guitar players, but also pay attention to the session guys. You know, the guys standing beside the rock star. Like,
of course.
I'm a huge fan of Dominic Miller. And Mike Campbell, I think, is great as well, and those sorts of guys. And the reason why I say that is because the session musicians, and very much like yourself, have to play for lots of different people. So you need to be able to draw on lots of different playing styles and get to lots of different conclusions.
Right.
Which means you can't ride on one trick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can, but yeah,
right.
I do. but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And again, you know, that's actually a big part of how I started, you know, really kind of developing a lot of what I wanted to do and say as a player is that I would listen to these records that weren't guitar records but had guitar playing on it, and I would try to learn those parts. You know, I mean, like there's no video of the Michael Jackson Thriller recording sessions, so I can't see how David Williams played like that, or Steve Lukather played like that. But I can listen to it and I can try to figure it out. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sound like either one of those guys, but I'm going to sound like my interpretation of one of those guys.
That was a big album for me, and Off the Wall as well.
Yeah, all that stuff.
I just loved the way that the guitar just sort of sat in the back, and it was percussive and groovy, and it wasn't all about the guitar all the time. You know, it was part of the big machine, which I loved.
Yeah. I mean, that's great practice, I think, for anybody that is wanting to have a career is just learn guitar parts from records. You know, absolutely. I mean, like you can learn songs, of course, but like really focus on the parts. Right. You know, and why they work together, and use your ear to figure them out, you know. And then go check YouTube to see if you did it right.
Right. Do you believe in the concept of talent?
I guess. I mean, I never really thought of it. I mean, nature versus nurture. Do you believe that it's in your genes, or do you think it's a skill learned? I think it's a combination of both. I mean, there are people that are just gifted, you know, and they have a musical brain that is not like normal people. You know what I mean? If you look at Jacob Collier, for example, like he has a musical brain that I do not have. Yeah. And I could probably run faster than he can. You know, I was kind of given that ability. But, interesting. But you know, the point is, I mean, they're just gifted people. And then there are people who are gifted who, with certain kinds of guidance, can develop another level of greatness, you know. Yeah. And then there are people who you know, have learned everything and digested everything and read every book and watched every video and everything, and you know, they have a sound that's different, you know what I mean, that's you know, that's not Jacob Collier or what have you. So I think it's a combination of
that's interesting. A lot of things, you know. I've always been skeptical of the idea, just because I think that, you know, really dedicated musicians just put so much time into it, and they just immerse themselves so much, not just playing but just watching and reading, and you know, it's an obsession, and I theorize that presents in a way that looks like a gift, but really it's just that they've probably compromised everything else in their life and just gone all in, you know? I mean, maybe. It's hard to say.
You know, I mean, yeah, it's totally hard to say. I mean, it's certainly not as quantifiable as, say, like athletics. Yeah. You know, like if you're not, you know, it's like if you're slow and not 6'8", you might have a hard time being in the NBA.
Right.
Exactly. It's like, it's just that's just fact.
They're definitely not going to call me. I'm not going to be in the NBA.
I'm not going to play. Mark Lettieri will not play in the NBA or the NFL or any of that. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But who's to say? Like, would I be a better guitar player if I practiced harder? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? That I think there's so much variable about just what you're born with and how much instruction you have.
Do you buy into the idea of the 10,000 hours? Do you think it's as simple as that?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, the idea that to master anything, you've got to put in 10,000 hours. So every top musician has put in at least 10,000 hours of practice. I think it's a bit of a broad sweeping idea, but it's quite a commonly said idea.
Man, well, like I said, I haven't heard about. I mean, I've been alive for 10,000 hours. Probably
that's an achievement.
More.
That's like just showing up at university, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I mean, I've probably spent a fair amount of those hours with a guitar.
Right.
But I don't know, dude. Like, I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, like, I've met people who can theorize circles around me, but can't play a blues.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just I don't have an answer for that. And then I know people that don't know a single thing about. Couldn't tell you what chord they're playing.
Right.
But when you see them, it's the most musical thing you've ever heard in your life.
No, I hear you. There's a lot of people that I've met in my career who are really good at what they do, and you ask them you ask them questions about the mechanics, and you sort of how do you do it, and how does it all work, and they're kind of like.
Yeah.
They're so focused on just doing it, they don't really stop and think about it.
Right. But I mean, to your point,
yeah,
both of those types of people that we're discussing have probably put in work or some kind of practice or some kind of experience at least.
Yeah.
It might just be directed in a different way.
Right.
Like the fella that can play beautiful whatever but doesn't know what he's doing has probably just played a lot of guitar.
Right.
Probably played a lot of gigs, just played.
Yes.
Whereas the guy who knows all the theory and all that stuff, but maybe doesn't have the feel or the soul as the other guy has probably put in a whole lot of work studying theory and reading books and doing all these things. So, I think for any musician, I think it's just whatever the sound you hear in your head is the sound you should be trying to achieve. And whatever you think is going to get you there is the right way to practice.
And it's also important to remember it's an art, right? So it's an expression of personality.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, it's a matter of opinion. Somebody might like listening to that theoretical dude more so than the street soul guy. We don't know.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That's the funny thing. It's like, why are we even discussing this? And I don't mean that in like, Danny, why are we talking about this?
No. I just mean
like, at the end of the day, I don't really care. If it sounds good, then everyone wins.
Exactly. And if we could sum it up and put a really nice, clean structure around it, we would then almost be required to break the structure, because that's sort of what art does, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't want to do that. I don't. I think nobody wants to be put in a box. Nobody wants to say, if you want to sound like Danny McCrum, these are the steps you need to take.
Right.
Like, who cares? That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
There was the rant we were talking about, even though that was pretty mild, I think.
So, is it fair to say that Snarky Puppy was the band, that exposed you on an international stage?
Yeah, in some respects, yeah, I think so. I mean, I was touring with Erykah Badu a little bit when Snarky Puppy was getting pretty busy. So I was touring, internationally and kind of playing in front of big audiences. But I think what Snarky Puppy did for everyone in the band is that they put us all on camera.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy, I mean, that's how most of the people outside of the little tour routes that we were doing really found out about us, was, because we started doing these videos on YouTube. And so, so yeah, I think absolutely it definitely elevated everyone in the band's kind of profile, just through how things on social media and stuff like that kind of blew up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, and everyone in the band always had some other kind of, and still does have some other kind of hustle.
Yeah.
Either they're sidemen or they're producers or they're artists in their own right. So I think it was just kind of a happy convergence of things that really kind of exposed everyone, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of it was sort of thought through or planned. But
probably
I think,
none of it.
But I think one of the things that Snarky really did right with those videos was they presented authenticity. You know, we all know these days that things can be edited and chopped up and tuned and quantized and so on.
This podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to edit all of this.
But having cameras on you guys while you're actually recording was a genius idea. I mean, I remember first hearing about Snarky Puppy and people saying, look, they're actually playing it. They're standing there playing it. And it's like no one had thought to do that since the early 60s.
Yeah.
Do you think that was sort of a happy accident that it worked like that?
Well, I mean, I think the result of it was probably an accident, but I think, well, let me back up.
Okay.
The intended result was to portray what we do live, more or less, with a studio quality context.
Right.
We could have made, this was Michael's idea, Michael Lee. He was like, I don't want to do a live recording where we set up a bunch of mics in a club and hope it works.
Yeah, right.
And I understand that,
Yeah.
So we did it in a studio. We just did a show in a studio. That's really all it was.
Yeah.
And it was the way, it was intended to give people the live Snarky Puppy experience, but with better audio quality.
Right.
And, but I think it happened at a time when it was just good for something like that to occur on the YouTube plane of existence. Because what did we, this was 2009, I guess, which, there was music on YouTube, but not anything like that. I mean, there were concerts, I guess, and maybe people playing in their bedrooms, but it was still mostly cat videos and guys falling off of motorcycles and things like that, So when Snarky Puppy came around and did what we did, where, it was almost set up so that it was like a gift to everyone who could watch on YouTube. It's like,
right,
here's something different. Like, this isn't really, this is you can watch a band make a record, essentially, is what people got to see. And it was the right kind of, it hit a right demographic, because I think there were a lot of young people that just wanted to hear musicians just go for it.
Yeah.
And really kind of stretch out and flex maybe some higher technical and compositional abilities that people were craving. And, I think maybe, I always thought of Snarky Puppy as kind of the band that I would want to listen to if I was in high school.
Right. Yeah. That's also cool because it's not inside any one genre. It's sort of all over the place, which is really great.
Right. So that was definitely a big thing. And I just remember being 15 and turning on the radio and not hearing anything that had any exciting guitar playing.
Right.
So I was like, well, what the heck? So I had to go find music kind of elsewhere.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be that 15, 16-year-old that wants to be challenged and hear something. And so when Snarky Puppy all of a sudden was on YouTube, they were like, oh, what is this? So
but I mean, from my perspective, it's broader than that, because it's, obviously you have a very big audience now, and, I hear stories about you guys playing live, and there are people in the audience singing along with the horn section and things like that. It's not just nerdy musicians.
Well, sure, yeah. Well, not anymore, but it definitely was. Right. and they definitely still come to the shows, and that's totally fine.
Which is great.
We need them, because somebody's got to buy a record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we can get the fellow musos involved, we'll be okay. But I get it. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Have you? What was it like when it all blew up and you became more well known in whatever way that has happened? Has that changed anything for you? Is that something you've had to sort of process or work through in your head?
I don't really think about it.
No?
I mean, occasionally I might get recognized at an airport or a Starbucks.
Yeah.
Which was still, I'm just like, you want to take a picture with me? Why? So that that sort of thing is different.
Yeah.
But as as far as the overarching kind of career perspective, I'm still the same guy. I still have the same goals. I still know what I need to do tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
I still have a bunch of emails for a tour coming up that are just bogging me down and stressing me out, and I need to get I need to figure all that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still work, man. It's work.
Yep.
There's it, I don't care what if people, it's funny, there's some comment on a Facebook post, I think that's the Snarky Puppy page made about something involving Spotify or something like that. And someone was like, well, these guys are millionaires. Why do they care about this?
Right.
And I was like, I had to like take a step. I was like, well, first of all, no one in the band is a millionaire. Second of all, not even close. Second of all, people, if that's what wow.
Yeah.
Okay. People are really looking at us way different than they did, 6-7 years ago. Like that was kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that perception though.
Well, that's what it is. It's like, well, this band has 8 million YouTube views or something. They must be billionaires.
Right.
And it's like, no, YouTube is.
Yeah.
They make money,
Well, that's kind of an old idea, isn't it? That, I mean, sometime in the past, decades ago, if someone was famous and you had their record, there was a good chance they were millionaires.
Exactly.
But that's all changed now.
Yeah.
It's almost the other way around.
Yes.
Like in New Zealand, sometimes it's true that if someone's well known, they've got less money because they've had to put so much money into recording and marketing.
Totally.
The wealthiest musicians in New Zealand play weddings.
I get it. That makes perfect sense. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be a sort of fairly true statement in America too? Do you think?
Well, I mean,
not counting the giants, obviously.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think anyone that's running their own career is hustling.
Yeah,
is making a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I every time I post tour dates, or the band or Snarky, whoever posts tour dates, people are like, well, how come you're not playing in, blank city or whatever? And it's like, well, dude, it was hard enough just to get these 10. We barely got these 10.
Right.
So, brother, we're coming for you. Just give us some time. You know what I mean? We're gonna play. We're gonna be there. It's just, I promise you. And we thank you and we love you. But I had to say, I'm only down to one kidney now because I had to make this tour happen. So eventually, if I can, operate on 2 kidneys, we will come and play. In your operate on 0 kidneys. Is what I'm trying to say. So anyway,
we had Bob Reynolds on the show a year or so ago, and we're asking him about how the songs are put together and all the rest of it. And we were quite surprised to learn that it's a lot looser than we would have thought. I thought it was all charted and maybe done to click tracks and things.
Yeah.
But I still don't completely understand how it's done. Is it sort of a lot of queuing going on and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, no charts.
Yeah.
It's all demoed. People make whatever demo they can make. Whoever writes the song makes a demo, and then that gets passed out, and then guys just kind of learn as much of it as they can.
Right.
Everyone's supposed to learn all the melodies and all the chords, sometimes. And then when we get in the studio, we kind of figure out who's going to play what, and then of course there's a lot of direction, of course, like, this is definitely a guitar part, or this is definitely for the horns or something like that, of course. Yeah. But there is some interchanging of parts. We do record to a click sometimes. It depends on the tune.
Yeah.
But
so approaching each new album, do you have a conversation about the vibe of the album or which direction it's going to go? Or is it more of an organic thing, sort of reveals itself?
It's pretty organic. Yeah. I mean, usually, and I don't know if this is the truth for everybody, but we'll usually get a couple tunes from Michael before we get there. And I think maybe the sound of those will inform the other guys who feel like writing something, but maybe not. Some guys just have tunes all ready to go, and they just bring them in, and then we just see what happens. Sometimes stuff really works, sometimes stuff doesn't work. And then we end up with a record that's kind of all over the place, but in a good way, because it's the same guys playing on every tune, so it's going to sound like the same band. It's just the flavors are kind of very diverse.
From the outside, it seems like each album has its own theme, and I might be projecting that.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, it's probably easier for you to hear that than it is for me.
Right. Yeah. More objective in a way.
Yeah. So I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I also understand the creative process. I mean, I've done the same thing myself. When you make something, you don't really understand it until about 2 years after it came out,
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the case with every musician is once they put out an album, they love it for like a couple months, and then they hate it for 3 years.
Exactly.
And then they make another, one, or they hate it, and then they put it out, and they're like, I still kind of hate it, but I actually kind of like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And then they're like, nah, you know, it does suck. We should just do another one. That's
It's
the
torturous.
struggle.
It's
Yeah,
torturous.
it is,
I
for
always
sure.
try and figure out a way to let myself off the hook with that problem, but never
It's
seems to work.
impossible. No, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that again, I might be projecting here, but with Michael League and Ground Up and Snarky and everything around that as well, Bacante and everything else, it seems like there's a whole different mindset in the approach, as in it seems like there's a focus on having an ethical business and treating people well and making good quality music and almost trying to buck the trends of a lot of what was wrong with the industry in the past and probably still is wrong. Is that fair to say, or am I just...
Well, I mean, Ground Up is not a record label in the sense that it, you know, like Atlantic or Columbia or something like that. It's more of a curating service, if that makes sense. So it's based on collecting stuff and then kind of, it's almost more of like I don't want to use the word promotional, but it's an incubator, sort of. You know, things get brought in and then things get pushed out of it, you know, I think I can't really totally speak on a lot of this, but for a time it was kind of more like a record, like a small indie record label.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of more of like a tastemaker service, I guess, or something like that. You know, it's like they're kind of like exposing people to cool stuff that comes from the family of Snarky Puppy. That's basically what the goal of Ground Up is, I think.
Right. Is there much conversation? I mean, I met Michael very briefly at NAMM a couple of years ago, and we had a conversation about streaming and that sort of stuff, and he was talking about how he would like to find a more positive solution for musicians.
Yeah. I think we all would.
Of course, but it was great to see. It was great to talk to someone who seemed so focused and so determined to make some kind of positive difference. And so I guess that's where a lot of my question came from. Is there a lot of conversation amongst you guys about how to step up from what has been, or how to make a positive change, and in response to some of the problems in the business?
I wouldn't say it's really like a conversation that we have a lot. I mean, again, I can't speak for Michael, but I know he's got his, there's things that he's very passionate about regarding changing the music industry and making sure people get compensated for it. And I think we all are on the same page as far as that's concerned.
Absolutely.
As far as the nuts and bolts, I think everyone probably has maybe their own specific opinions, as it probably applies more to their own personal career than it does Snarky Puppy as a whole.
Yeah.
So, maybe, I don't know if you asked this question to Bob Reynolds or not, but like he probably has a specific music business model that would work best with what he does.
Yes.
Which might not be what Snarky Puppy does, which might not be what I do.
Right. But as long as we're thinking about it and talking about it, eh?
Yeah, and and everyone in the band is in the same sort of, like, we're all independent artists,
right,
basically, and we come together in Snarky Puppy, which is just yet another independent band.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know how to exist in any other music industry.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't around in the 70s when people were getting $1 million advances. I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, true.
And I've never been signed to a major label. I've done some recording sessions for major labels, but that's session guy stuff.
Right.
That you just signed a W-9 and you get a check.
Yeah.
and you leave. You play, you chang-a-lang, and then you leave.
Yeah. It's good though. It's inspiring. I mean, at least a lot of people I talk to, when Snarky Puppy is a very popular band, obviously, and a lot of people talk about them, and there is it's great to have people to look up to, I think, out there who are
right on
running a positive thing musically, but also behind the scenes. I think it's reminding musicians that they can treat each other right, and they can just make good music and try and have a good business behind the scenes. So I don't know if you guys are so aware of that internally, but that's definitely the impression that's coming out.
Well, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, thank you. That's good to hear. I mean, we're all just trying to survive in the wild west that is the music business, right, or lack of music. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
I put out a record last Friday, of a kind of a solo record of a bunch of baritone guitar kind of funk jams. And
awesome.
I got a message. Oh, thanks. You should check it out. It's really good.
Yeah. I didn't hear about it. I've got Spark and Echo, which is a great record.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, this is So, I have another Spark and Echo type record coming out later in the year. But anyway, I did this little baritone thing for fun and with some friends and put it up online and everything. And I got a message from somebody saying, like, I think I've streamed it enough that you'll probably get some money. And I was like, dude, just buy it.
Exactly.
I'll get more money if you just buy it.
You'd have to stream it about 20 million times to get...
you're going to have to stream it 7 trillion times before I make $7. You know what I mean? Like, just buy it on Bandcamp. It's $7.
It's crazy, eh?
That's like 42 million streams on Spotify or whatever. I don't know. So I sent him the email back and just kind of laughed, and I think he went and bought the record probably because I probably made him feel bad about himself. But that's how I treat my fans. I just guilt them into buying things. You know?
Yeah, it seems like a good model.
but you know what I mean? Like, I can't fault the guy. Like that.
No.
You know, I'm just thankful that he even gave a crap enough to listen to it once.
Absolutely,
first of all,
and then reached out to you as well.
And then reached out, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like that's how the average person consumes music. They go, oh yeah, I'll just log on. Oh no, yeah, I'll check it out. Oh cool, that was fun.
And they genuinely don't know, do they? I
don't think anyone does it on purpose. I don't think anyone really even. I mean, heck, I do it. We all do it.
Yeah.
I have a Spotify account. I mean, I usually buy the music if I really dig it.
Yeah, same.
Rather, I don't just sit there and listen to it over and over again. But I'm a little different.
It was a really good PR trick when they came out and they said we're now paying the musicians after the days of piracy, and everyone went, oh brilliant, you're paying the musicians, everything's great. We'll just start using this then. And
yeah, right. Well, yeah, the average music fan probably goes, oh, cool, that's nice of them.
Exactly.
But then the musician who logs on to get the royalty check is like, oh, cool, 0.00004 cents this month. Great.
Exactly.
But you got to think, man, like, you and I remember riding my bike to Tower Records with whatever money I got from mowing a lawn.
Yep.
And buying like a Joe Satriani album for $15.99.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how much money that he got, probably a decent amount, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what music was. It was like there was a physicality to it.
I remember mapping my pocket money that I used to get from mowing lawns and so on. Mapping my pocket money by how many weeks it would take me to save up for a record. That's how I worked it out. So if like in New Zealand, when I was a kid, cassettes and vinyl were about $20, and then when CDs came out, they were $30. And if I got $5 a week, then it was 4 weeks before I could buy a cassette, 6 weeks before a record. That was my whole
way more
existence.
lawns than I did. Wow, $30.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, they were really expensive here. That was some of the backlash here. I don't know what it was like there, but when musicians started to complain about piracy, there was definitely a feeling of, you guys have just spent the last 10 years charging us $30 for a CD. It even got more expensive than that as well. So.
Right. Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to sort of get into here was about the mindset of playing. And when I've watched the videos of Snarky Puppy and other videos of you playing, there seems to be a kind of a calmness about you when you play. And it's something that I've thought about a lot more with my own playing in recent times, about getting into the right headspace before a performance, especially when you're on camera and it's being recorded live, and also when you're in the company of other great players. Do you have a sort of a process that you go through to put yourself into the right headspace?
Well, it seems like I've fooled you into thinking that my look of utter sheer terror is actually my calm and cool, collected face.
So it's actually acting.
Yeah, it's acting. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Maybe I should do that instead. Music is silly. I'll make more money being on Game of Thrones or something. Get my head cut off. Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't actually really thought about that. I mean, I sort of like, I guess I sort of go through a routine. I warm up a little bit. I say a couple prayers, and then I just hope that I don't suck. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I suffer from red light syndrome just like everybody else. You know, I think like sometimes if I have to not look at cameras, like especially if I can, if I'm focusing on my fretboard or whatever it is, got my eyes closed or something. But generally, if my eyes are open and I see someone come around with a camera, that's the worst. Yeah. Because I know they're going to like, he's going to do something. We should just put the camera right on his front. That's when it's just, that was the bad take. I just ruined it for everybody. So I struggle with that just like everybody else. I don't know if anyone feels, there might be some guys in the band that kind of really feed off the camera. Like I think Sean Martin probably wishes he was a movie star. He's got that kind of Hollywood, kind of thing. But it depends. I think a lot of it is just like if it's something. I think a lot of it has to do with my confidence level going into it. If it's something that I know I can nail, and it's kind of in my wheelhouse of things that I'm playing wise that I'm generally confident about, I'm cool. We'll have a party. It'll be like MTV, But if it's something that's out of my comfort zone, then I try to just keep the train on the track and not derail.
Do you know Tommy Emmanuel?
Not personally, but I know his music for sure.
Yeah, killer player. We had him on the show, and I asked him a similar question, and because he comes across as really calm and collected all the time, and I thought he was going to give me some pearls of wisdom about how to stay calm and collected and how to just I thought he was like centered and just some sort of philosophical messiah or something. But he surprised me and he said, no, I get the same voices in my head. He goes, I call them the shitty committee. The voices voices in your head that tell you you're about to derail and you can't do it, or, and that blew my mind because he's so at peace when he plays.
That's humanity, man. Well, you know what? I think a lot of that's probably experience.
Yeah.
He's been having to tell those voices to shut up for 30 years.
Right.
He's probably gotten pretty good at it. I'm still trying to get to that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like some nights I go on stage in front of, if it's a Snarky show or whoever I'm with and there's thousands of people, I'm like cool as a cucumber.
Right.
And then other times I'm just a mess. It's hard, I think maybe part of it starts when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
If everything is kind of like smooth sailing, who knows? If I had an answer for a magic formula, then I would employ it every day, but I don't.
Maybe the trick is to not overthink it.
Well, that's definitely a big part of it. Yeah. For sure.
Do you battle at all with competitiveness? Does that creep in?
I think we're all competitive and I think a certain amount of that is good because it pushes you to be better.
Right.
The problem is when competitiveness turns into jealousy or turns into comparing yourself or wondering why someone has something that you don't. That's destructive.
Right.
And as humans, we all struggle with that. No one doesn't compare themselves.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of what you do with that. You can choose to be inspired by it. You can choose to let it mess you up.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's harder now than probably it ever is because it's so easy to see greatness all the time.
Yeah.
If anytime you go on your computer or whatever, if you pick your insert social media account here, you can go see players that will blow your mind and play circles around you. So what do you do with that?
Exactly.
That's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
But yes, I fear child prodigies coming and taking my gigs all the time.
Yeah. That was something that really sort of tripped me over a lot in my playing. I've been trying to get rid of that because I think it's very uncreative in many ways. I understand what you're saying about competitiveness pushing you to pursue excellence. But if you're up there trying to outdo someone, I think that's the wrong reason to play.
You should take competitiveness. You should compete with yourself.
Yes.
You should. If you see an amazing performance, don't try to do that.
Right.
Try to do that caliber of your thing.
Right.
Does that make sense? So like if you see a brilliant guitar player or whatever, don't try to match that and do what they do at that level because you can't.
Yeah.
Do something at that level that represents what you do.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I have to constantly tell myself a lot. Like I see a video and I'm like, oh man, I should learn all that and figure out how to do it. It's like, well, maybe I'll learn some of it or something, but at the end of the day, I should be able to express myself, my sound at that level. Even though it's not going to sound the same, it's going to sound completely different, but the quality is the same.
And I guess that comes back to the idea of it being art and being expressive.
Exactly.
You learn all the different tools so that you can say what you have to say.
Exactly. The more of that we have, the better.
Yeah.
Like influences are great and everyone should have them. But at a certain point, you should shed some of it. And I'm still working on that.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
And how do you deal with tour life and trying to stay healthy, and you have a young family and life balance? How does that work for you?
Well, it's a balance, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I turned down a lot of things.
Right.
That I used to just say yes to everything. But now I can't do that now, and I understand. That's fine. I get it. A Friday night home with my family is more important than a lot of other things I used to do. Well,
that's sort of
music-wise.
In a way, that's a version of success, isn't it? Because when you're starting out and you're hustling, you have to say yes to everything.
Sure. Yeah, I guess so.
Being able to afford to say no to things is actually a luxury.
Well, sometimes I can't afford to it, but I still say no to it.
Right.
To be honest, I just because there's money, and then there's family currency.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And sometimes if you spend too much of one, it can be bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not a financial planner here, but like I always, just the other day, I actually, this morning, I turned down something that would have been great, but it would have conflicted too much with some family stuff. And it just like, I'll figure out how to make that money somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing to say, and people probably listening to be like, "Well, that must be nice to say that," but I'll go find it. I'll figure it out. We'll be all right.
I mean, before you made the point that you've only experienced the industry as it is now, which is completely logical,
right?
But at the same time, I think there is a little bit of a shift these days that the whole idea of going out and sort of blowing up your personal life and getting wasted on everything, whatever, is just not. It's not part of the culture now. There seems to be a shift where we do seem to be more about, I don't know, having more of a balance internally, and family life and being healthier seems to be more part of the musical existence these days. Is that do you agree with that?
I mean, I guess so. I think, yes, yeah, I do. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know any other way. But I think now probably what you're saying is that. There was a time when the music industry would kind of take care of you. Yeah. And now it doesn't take care of you. Right. So you have to take care of yourself. Yes. And if you are not focused, you will not be able to go get what you need.
Exactly. Like the days of Keith Moon have gone.
Well,
Keith Moon had apparently Keith Moon had an assistant.
Keith Moon's dead. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the other thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I guess we don't really know too much about regular working musicians from other decades, unless you know them personally. And the people that I know who were working musicians in the 90s or 80s or whatever, it's the same thing. I mean, like the music industry was different. Yeah. Of course, and probably certain things paid maybe differently in some respects, but the concept of being a working musician is the same. It's a hustle. It's a freaking hard job. Right. So it's a very hard job.
So the challenges that come up have changed slightly, but it's always been just as challenging.
It's always been just as challenging. It's just maybe there's different parameters around those challenges.
Right. Yeah. So what are you working towards going forward? Like, do you sort of go day to day and take each thing as it comes along, or do you tend to think in 5 years from now I'd like to have achieved these things?
Yeah, it's both.
Are you a planner?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have some day-to-days. I have a lot. The next 6 months, basically, are what I'm working on right now. Right. Just like getting up in the morning and working on. And that's tours, that's album releases, that's video lesson planning, that's session work, that's a whole, a bunch of logistical things surrounding all those things. Sure. But, I mean, but yeah, I do think about in 5 years, how what I would like to have, and I think a lot of it is kind of the same thing that I've had every year of my life. I just would like to have another zero at the end of the check. No, that's really silly, but it's I'm kind of not, I'm not joking around. It's like I'm thankful that I get to kind of play the music that I want to play with the people I want to play. Oh, my daughter's playing the harmonica. I don't know if you can hear that, but
I heard that. That's great.
Yeah, she's killing it over there. But you know what I mean? Like, I would like the Mark Lettieri solo thing to be possibly, I'll just say it, to be economically sustainable.
Right.
You know? Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of work. It's a money pit.
There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah. So you know, that would be great. I'd love to. Of course, I want to keep working with the Pups as long as that makes sense to do. You know, those are my homeboys, and I love doing it. So, I like having time to back other artists. You know, I'd like to maybe get into some production stuff, maybe like producing some bands or something.
Right.
But you know, my priorities are my family, and whatever I need to do to take care of that is kind of number one. And if I can do that by doing stuff I really care about musically, then I feel like that's success.
That's brilliant.
You know. But I mean, if you know, if I'm making like a bunch of money every year doing it, that'd be cool too.
Exactly.
Who doesn't want that? You know.
Well, money's not the opposite of art, like some people think.
I got bills, man. I got a mortgage.
Exactly.
Take care of this crap.
Real life still happens, right?
Real life happens, man.
Well, thanks very much for making the time to be on the show. It's been great.
Danny, it was my pleasure, man. I had a blast talking with you.